Hey, my name's Dale from dalediley.com and Healing Osteoporosis Naturally. And in today's video, what I want to talk about is finding the root cause. Now, I believe that if you don't know why you've got something, it's a bit difficult to know how to treat it. The pathway into osteoporosis is multidimensional. There are many roads in. And when you're looking for your root cause, the clues are not all going to come in one big fell swoop. They're going to come bit by bit. And that's what's happened to me is when I had some blood tests, I was able to go, right, that's one of my causes. So for example, I had an undiagnosed overactive thyroid back in 2011-12, something like that, and I actually healed it naturally quite by accident. Then a whole load of stress happened. I took my eye off the ball and I did a well woman checkup in 2016 and discovered that I had an overactive thyroid again, which I sorted out in 6 weeks with nutrition and energy medicine. So when I looked back at my life history, and when you look backwards, you can join a lot of dots. You know, it's not just about what's happening now, it's like, how did we get here? So one of the first things that I suggest people do when they're looking at root cause is actually go back to birth and go back beyond. So look at your mother, your siblings, your grandmother, other people's health, and see if you can see some clues. You know, your osteoporosis could be genetic, but you won't know that unless you go and do some gene testing, and we'll talk about that another time. It might be that you're low in some nutrients, so we know that low vitamin D is a risk factor, but you don't know these things unless you go and get some tests. So what happened with me was, you know, I learned that I had the overactive thyroid, so that's a clue. And then some other things happened, and more tests. I kept looking at these blood tests and saying, well, why is that high or why is that low? And I did lots and lots of research. And what I was able to come up with is what I now think is a definitive set of reasons why I got osteoporosis. So I'm not going to tell you what they are in this video. This video is about inviting you to go and create what I call a timeline. Now I use a roll of brown paper to do most of my mind mapping, and literally you just lay it out on a kitchen table and go and get yourself some coloured pens. Now what I tend to do is to do these in blocks of, let's say, 0 to 10, 11 to 20, 21, so that I can see if there's a picture or a pattern of things that have gone on. So the things that I would look for example, was I vaginally born? So that's a positive. Was I breastfed? That's a positive, right? So this is about building immunity. So I use different coloured pens. So if I think it's a positive, I'll write it in green. If I think it's something that's negative, I'll write it in red. And if I'm not sure, I'll just choose some other colour. So I'll go all the way back through my life, and things like, you know, if I was given milk, I used to vomit. So, you know, we can see there's an intolerance. I look at the number of times, types of infection I've had and how they were treated. So I had lots of ear infections, and in Chinese medicine, the ear is connected to the bones. I've had lots of kidney infections, that's connected to the bones. So we build this picture on this sheet of paper, a visual picture of how did we get here. So in the first part of looking for the root cause, we need to go backwards. If your parents are still alive, you can interview them. If they know anything about your grandparents' health, write it all down, and then kind of just leave it, but keep coming back and reflecting and saying, right, well, you know, what has gone on? So if I get to my 50s, you know, I went through menopause at 50. You know, I've had overactive thyroid twice. I've had, what else have I had? I've had like arthritis, but I don't suffer from it now because I've treated that nutritionally. I've had a lot of stress, so all of those things go on this big sheet of paper that enabled me to have clues. So I'll give you one clue before I go. So although my hair's not red anymore, see, no longer red, it's all other whatever funny colours. I was a redhead and I had a major aversion to the sun. So my parents are both dark, and we'd go on these what I call hot holidays, and I'd sit there with a big hat on and under the umbrella, and I actually quite like the fact that I was white. And I live in a hot country, and this year, I mean, I'm not very brown, but this is the brownest I've ever been. And one of the things that I always laugh about being a redhead is I hate the sun. Where do you get vitamin D from, right? Think about it. I don't go in the sun. At the beginning of January, I was practically a vegan, so I wasn't eating any things like salmon and you know, other oily fishes that vitamin D might be in. So I did the let's go back in time, and I just wrote, I wrote, well, I'm red and I don't like the sun, and I thought, don't like the sun, silly woman. See? Your clues come to you in the most bizarre ways. So start off doing the timeline, and then we'll talk another day about finding other clues that are going to help you find your root cause and be able to create your individual healing plan. So my name's Dale, I'm from dalediley.com, Healing Osteoporosis Naturally, and I have a group on Facebook called Healing Osteoporosis Naturally, and I'd love to see you there, and there's loads and loads of support and resources in the group.